I'm Julia from Julia Teaching Resources, and welcome to this video. Tonight, or in this video, I'm going to be talking to you about all those other types of questions that you might get in the HSC, or talking about the concepts of music where they ask you to talk about things like unity or variety or tension or climax or similarities or differences, all those sorts of things. So that's what we're going to be actually talking about tonight. And I'm going to introduce you to a little friend called Mrs. HIPDOT. Now, she's my little friend and she's our little secret weapon when we're talking about these sorts of questions. So I'm going to start sharing my screen and we will get this show on the road, so to speak. Come on. Alrighty, so as I said, we're going to master the other types of questions with the concepts of music with Mrs. HIPDOT. She will be your best friend. So welcome. I'm going to talk about what are the 6 concepts of music. I'll give you a brief explanation of the 6 concepts of music, and then I'll talk to you about how to master the other types of questions with Mrs. HIPDOT. Now, I'm going to talk about the concepts of music here. You can't talk about any or understand or do anything really good with any of those concepts of music questions unless you know what these 6 concepts of music are and what they actually mean. So to do those sorts of questions and understand what Mrs. HIPDOT is, you need to have a good understanding of each of these concepts of music. So in alphabetical order, they are duration, dynamics and expressive techniques, pitch, structure, texture, and tone color. Now, I would suggest if this is the first video you're watching, I would suggest you stop and go and watch the other videos and then come back to this one, because you really need to have a good understanding of each of the concepts of music before you can actually talk about the concepts of music in those sorts of questions. Okay, you really, really need to actually do that. So duration simply means how long or short a sound is. Dynamics refers to how loud or soft a sound is, whereas the expressive techniques are all about the particular articulation and unique sound production methods of an instrument. Pitch is how low or high a note or pitched instrument pitch sound is. Structure refers to the order and arrangement of the parts of the music. Texture is how thick or thin or sparse or dense the layers of sound are in a piece of music. And tone color is the instruments used in a piece of music. Now, there's some other names for some of these. Duration, some people might know them with the elements of music as rhythm. Dynamics and expressive techniques, so they come under one banner here. Pitch, you might know about melody, harmony, and tonality, but for me, I put them all under the same umbrella as pitch. Structure, musical form. Texture is layers of sound. That's another name for it. And tone color, it could be called performing media. Timbre is another way people refer to it. You don't normally get that in the HSC though. Performing media could be sound sources. It could be pitch material. Okay, I've seen all those sorts of things used in questions for the HSC exam. So we are focusing on those other types of questions. You're going to be guaranteed of one of these types of questions in the exam, if not 2 or 3 of them, okay? So one of these types of questions is unity. So unity in music means that some features of the music are constant and do not change. Okay, there's lots of ways to discuss unity in a piece of music, but unity is those things that stay the same. Okay, so the melody might stay the same, or it might stay always consonant sounding, or it might have the same sorts of rhythms or the same sorts of ostinatos. Okay, unity is what unifies the piece together, what brings it all together. Another type of these sorts of questions where you have to talk about all of the concepts of music is variety, interest, or contrast. Essentially, they're the same thing. Okay, so if you have an interest question or a variety question or a contrast question, my biggest thing for you is to make sure you use that term that's in the question in your answer. But variety, interest, or contrast in music means that some features of the music are changing and that they are treated differently from section to section. So it could be that the melody, maybe it's the same melody, but it might be performed by a different instrument each time. It could be that the dynamics change from section to section. It could be that there are 2 different sections or 3 different sections, so the structure is changing. It could be any of those sorts of things. So we're talking about contrast, or variety. So things that are different, things that are changing. Now, you might also get a comparison question. Now, with a comparison question, you get two different versions of the same piece of music. Now, sometimes you are asked to only discuss similarities, which is what is the same. Sometimes you're asked to discuss just differences. Sometimes you're asked to discuss both of them. But similarities are comparing two versions of the same music and looking for what musical features are treated in a similar way. So again, it might be that they both have a similar melody. Okay, they're using the same sort of melody line. It could be that they are using the same structure. It could be that they're using the same types of instruments. It could be that they're both using homophonic texture. It could be all sorts of things. What are they using in two versions that's actually the same? But again, I'll talk to you about Mrs. HIPDOT and how she can be your best friend in this. Differences, on the other hand, is when you're comparing two versions of the same music and looking for what musical features are treated in a different way. So again, if you've got like the structure, it could be that there's different sections. So there's different sections, different melodies, different instruments coming in and out. The texture might change. It might go from monophonic to homophonic. It could go from homophonic to polyphonic. It could be that one section's homophonic, the next section is a round. Who knows? Okay, but we're looking for things that are different. Now, all the things I'm about to show you are all in this freebie, which is right on your page there. Now, this is the music analysis and writing about music, concepts of music freebie, and I'll show you a few things that are in there. And if you've been watching these videos, you know there's stacks of stuff in there and lots of ways that you can actually use them. But to get your copy, juliagia.teachable.com, that's where you need to go to actually get them, okay? And as I said, I'm about to show you what some things that you can actually get in that freebie. So this lovely poster here is Mrs. HIPDOT. So you can see there, and I'm going to go into more detail, so I'm not going to talk about them now. But this is it in A3 size, okay, which is, sorry, A4. But you could print it bigger, and it's fantastic as a display thing in your posters in your classroom, especially if you laminate it. It'll last for years. If you haven't got much room, maybe do it at A4 size. You could do it A5 size, which means you get 2 to a page, A4. Or you could go smaller and use them in what I love to use them for, which is this, okay, which is the manipulative. And I've got all the concepts of music in here, and I've got all the concepts of music mind maps also on there as well, okay, for my students to use. They're really, really, really helpful, okay? But as said, it's up to you how you want to use them. You may think this is a silly idea. I just want to use the mind maps. I don't know. But the mind maps, as I said, other questions. Oops, picked up the wrong one. Here we go. So other questions. And each of these things, you'll see that each of these bubbles relates to what we're going to talk about with Mrs. HIPDOT, okay? So again, print it in A3 size and colour it in and talk about, you know, have this as a display poster. You can have a competition in your classroom to see, you know, who does the best job and use that as display. Print as A5, which is 2 to a page. Fantastic to use for lots of different music classroom activities. Put it into the kids' books, or print it as smaller again. And again, as I said, you know, use it for in these little thingies. Or my favorite way to use it for group work, that's great for individual work. For group work is to print this size, but on an A3 piece of paper, so it gives my kids enough room to write around the edges when we're doing something. And fantastic for group work and starting. And look, the best thing about using these things in group work is if you're really smart about who you're pairing together, make sure that you work. Put people that know what they're doing, and some people who are struggling a bit, and they will learn from each other. But if you're using this as a study method, study aid, it's perfect for studying and just using it as a quick way to actually do these sorts of things and study in for your HSC exam, or if you're doing the concepts of music in different things, okay? So again, use it as a listening planning map or a performance planning map, or even a composition planning map, okay? These ones, I would probably not use it maybe for performance and composition. It could be used, you know, how are you using the concepts of music? And this is just the one thing that you're talking about. How this basically, when you see Mrs. HIPDOT, you'll see how it actually covers every single concept of music, but perfect for the listening planning map, okay? Perfect for that. Now, this page here is not in the freebie. It's not in the freebie, but it is in the Concepts of Music mind maps that is available on my Teachers Pay Teachers store, or in my Teachers Pay Teachers store. But if you don't want to purchase that, that's fine. You can use the freebie. You can use this. Just pause the video here, okay, copy out the information, and you're going to have yourself a set anyway. All right, so you can do it that way. But if you prefer to get the pretty colors and everything already done for you, pop over to my Teachers Pay Teacher store. But you can see here, this is Mrs. HIPDOT, which I'm going to show you in a moment. So this is Mrs. HIPDOT. Okay, so melody, range, roll, register, structure, harmony, identify, phrasing, dynamics, ostinato or ornamentation, and T is for texture, tempo, time signature or techniques. Don't have to do all of them. Okay, just what's going to be more suitable for what you are, the type of questioning you are doing. And here is Mrs. HIPDOT. Now, I use a lot of clip art in the work I have, and this is from a lovely person called Ron Leishman from Digital Tunage. And when I was looking for something to represent Mrs. HIPDOT, I was searching, and I found this crazy lady. And I thought, right, those dotty pants is Mrs. HIPDOT, okay? But Mrs. HIPDOT stands for, as I said, melody, range, roll, register, structure for Mrs. HIPDOT being harmony, identify, phrasing, dynamics, ostinatos, ornamentation, texture, tempo, time signature, and techniques. Now, this is how they all relate and how they actually work into each of the concepts. So you can see here, I've got Mrs. HIPDOT. Okay, so melody comes under pitch, range, register, and roll is pitch and tone color, and obviously lots of other different things. S for structure, obviously structure. H for harmony comes under pitch as well. Identify is tone color. Phrasing could be pitch or duration. It could also come under structure. Dynamics is obviously from dynamics and expressive techniques. Ostinatos and ornamentation are pitch, duration, and structure. And the T, the texture, tempo, time signature, and the techniques. Texture is obviously texture. Tempo and time signature comes under duration, and techniques comes under expressive techniques or even under tone color. And so you can see there, we've actually covered every single one of the 6 concepts of music. You don't have to use every single one of Mrs. HIPDOT. You're going to be actually pushed to do that, especially if you're using this for the HSC exam. You won't have enough space to do it on the page. But what I encourage you to do is, if you're going to do this, put at the top of the page, if it's a concepts of music question, Mrs. HIPDOT, have a listen to the music and go, okay, I can do these things, and talk about those. And then, you know, especially if it's, say, a unity question, that's perfect for unity. That's perfect for similarities. That's perfect for differences or variety or whatever. So just to get you into what each of these things stands for. So M for melody is a series of pitches that forms a tune. It's a basic understanding. You should understand what a melody is in music. Range, roll, register. Okay, so range we're talking about here, the distance between the lowest and highest note performed by an instrument. Now, I'm just actually going to go back. So melody, I talked about it briefly, but if it's a unity question, it might be that the melody is the same. Okay, if it's a similarity question, you're comparing two things, it might be that they're using the same melody. If it's a variety, it might be the same melody, but performed by different instruments, especially in the comparison one. It could be that they're performed by different, using slightly different techniques. So how does it fit into the question you're using or answering? Same with range. If you're doing a unity question and your instruments all stay in the similar range all the way through, that's unified. Okay. If, for example, though, they might start in one, have a very narrow range in one section and a wide range in another, that could be differences or variety or interest or contrast. Register, the same deal. You could be talking about instruments comparing them to one another. Okay, so the unity might be that each instrument stays within their own register, so the height or depth of the notes performed, treble or bass. It could be that if it's, say, variety, that we have a variety of registers. It could be the interest is created because an instrument goes from its lower register to a highest register. You get the idea. This is how you got to think about, well, how is this actually being used, and how can I actually put that in my response? Your role, the role an instrument performs in the melody. So does the role of the melody change? Does the role of melodic accompaniment change or stay the same? Is it rhythmic accompaniment and bass line and beat? they're the sorts of roles that an instrument can perform in a piece of music. It might be that, if you're comparing two versions, that one instrument, one ensemble has very few instruments in it, so there's not many roles, whereas the other one has lots of instruments and every role is filled. Okay, that could be the interest. It could be variety, that in one section, only a couple of instruments are playing, so we're talking a bit about texture as well. And the next section, lots of instruments are playing and the roles have maybe changed. Okay, you don't know. There's too many things to talk about in this little video, but this is just something to give you an idea. Structure, so the order and arrangement of the different parts of a piece of music. So if we're talking about unity, it's maybe that the instruments are all, or the piece of music is moving together, unified from structure, from one section to another. In terms of variety, in interest and differences, it could be that there's different melodies in each section of the music. It could be that the structure is three composed, so that's what's creating the variety. If there's a repeating section, that might be what's unifying it, especially if it's, say, rondo, because it goes A, B, A, C, A, and it's always returning to that A section, okay? Think about how it can actually be used. Harmony, the succession of chords or chordal progressions made by two or more parts or voices singing or playing together. So again, does the harmony stay the same? If it stays the same, we're talking unity, okay? If it's the same between two versions, we're talking maybe similarity. If it changes though, so say to create interest, variety, or contrast, it could be that there's one section's really, really lovely, and the next section is like, it goes from consonant to dissonant and it's quite uncomfortable. That could be the change. It could be that the harmonic roles change, okay, that the instruments performing the harmony and how the harmony is being performed is different or the same. Identify. So you are listening to the music and obviously identifying the instruments. Now, honestly, this is probably one of the best things you can do straight up anyway. But I know it's not the first thing I'm talking about, but because it makes more sense to say Mrs. HIPDOT. But if you identify your instruments, you can then talk about what else is happening and how it's creating unity, how it's creating difference. Now, one thing you could be talking about with straight tone color here is if it's unity, it could be that maybe it's a string quartet playing and that they're all classified as a string instrument. Okay, it could be that there's variety because there could be we've got a good variety here of instruments playing here in different roles and different registers, okay, different techniques, between your aerophones and your quartophones, or your woodwind instruments to your string instruments. Okay, that's another way you could be looking at it. So what's maybe unifying, and maybe what's variety or contrast or difference, or the other word, interest. Sorry. Phrasing. So a phrasing is a small musical sentence heard when a singer takes a breath or break between small sections of the melody. Now, phrasing is not just for singers. I just use that as a good example because it's really easy to hear when a singer actually performs. You can hear where they're taking that little breath. An instrument can perform a longer phrase because they're not having to breathe through it, okay? But you're listening for those little breaks. So the phrasing might be unified because maybe it's 2-bar all the time, or 4-bar or 8-bar, whatever happens to be. It could be that the phrasing is different or it creates interest or variety or whatever, because maybe in one section it's quite balanced and in the next section it's unbalanced or uneven or asymmetrical. It could be that the phrasing length changes between sections. Again, what's creating variety, what's creating interest, what's creating unity. Okay, do things stay the same or do things change? Dynamics is the loudness or softness of sound. So again, when we're looking for unity, okay, and similarity, we're looking for things that are the same. So if it's unity and we're talking about one piece of music, it might be that together the instruments are all playing at a certain level. Together they perform and build a crescendo. If it's variety, it might be that there's a really loud violin section over a really, really quiet woodwind. I don't know. I'm just making that up. It could be that the timpani here is dominating and being really, really, really loud at fortissimo and creating contrast or variety or interest with the strings who are actually doing a really, really soft something. Okay, I don't know. As I said, it can just have a look for and listen for what's the same if it's unity and similarity, or what's different if it is differences, interest, variety, or contrast. Ornamentation are the fancy bits that are used in a melody, okay, or by any other instruments. So trills, turns, slides, glissandos, bends, etc. So the ornamentation, again, looking for similar techniques, looking for different techniques, looking for things that might change or between sections and might stay the same between sections. And I know I haven't mentioned really climax or tension here, but the same sort of thing happen. It's the same sort of thing for differences and variety and interest, okay? But with climax and tension, it's usually building towards something. That's where dynamics really plays a big part. It could be that the type of ornamentation is building tension. So if you've got that long drone of a sound that's sort of slowly, just that long sustained note, it's sort of hanging there, that could be building tension. It could be that the violins are doing a tremolo that's, you know, really high pitched and a horrible, like, and, you know, and it's like putting you on the edge of your seat. That could be tension. It also could be variety. It could be all these things. I hope you're getting the picture. An ostinato. So it's a repeated musical pattern. It could be melodic, it could be chordal, could be rhythmic. Okay, so have a look at or listen for the ostinatos. So for unity, it could be that it's using the same rhythmic ostinato all the way through. It could be that it's using the same melodic ostinato that maybe is coming back in each sections, or it could be using different ones. It could be that the guitar performs a riff in the verse and a very different one in the chorus. I don't know. It could be that the same chordal pattern is used all the way through the song, or it could be that the same chord pattern or chordal ostinato, chord progression, is different between section and section. Okay, so looking for what's unifying them if it's the same, and what's different if it's variety, interest, tension, all those sorts of things. Texture is the relationship between the layers of sounds or voices described as thin, medium, or thick in density, or it could be sparse or dense. Okay, it's talking about the number of layers. So this is a really easy one. So if texture is being unified, it's probably the same all the way. So unity is achieved because it is all performed with one melody and accompaniment, and it's homophonic. Not saying that's the only one that can be achieved with unity, but that's one idea. It could be that it's different. It could be that the density changes from section to section. So that might be where it's actually a bit of variety. It could be that the differences come between two different ensembles. If you're comparing them, one's got a full orchestra and one is a jazz quintet. Okay, so differences in sound. Okay, could also be that one sounds thicker and more dense because of the way the instruments are played. One sounds lighter, even though it's got more instruments. Those are the sorts of things you could be looking for and listening for. Tempo is the speed of the music. So does it stay the same? Is it consistent, or does it change? And if it changes, we're looking then for interest, variety, contrast, all those sorts of things. And if you're doing like a climax or a tension question and the tempo is slowly increasing all the time, it's building, that's certainly going to add to the tension or the climax of the music. Okay, whereas if it's variety, it could be, again, starting slow, ending fast. It could be that each section has tempo changes, all those sorts of things. But unity, it could be that it's the same tempo all the way through, or that all the instruments go together. I don't know, depends on what you're listening to. Time signature. So again, this is one of those things that if it stays the same, it's perfect for unity and similarity. If it's different, we're talking variety, contrast, interest, all those sorts of things. So 2/4, does it stay as a march time all the way through? And so it's isometric time signature. Or is it a multi-metric time signature, so that it might go from 3/4 to 4/4, or it might go from 3/4 to 6/8? Okay, it doesn't, what is it? Okay, but make sure you're identifying them and saying what you need to actually, how it's unified, or how it's different, how it's variety, any of those sorts of things that you're talking about. Use the word from the question in your answer. Techniques. So these are those expressive techniques. So what techniques are being used by a voice or an instrument to create the sound and make it interesting? So do the techniques used by a particular instrument, are they recurring? Are they used all the time? Or are they, and so it's unity, or is it the same sort of techniques used by the same sort of instruments? Or is it the same sort of, or is it different techniques used by one instrument from one section to the next? What's happening, what you've got to listen for what each instrument's doing. Okay, I've thrown a lot at you, and this is a massive topic. And I said I'm doing this very in a short amount of time for you. But the thing is that I want you to remember, if you remember nothing else, when you have a concepts of music question, remember Mrs. HIPDOT. She is your friend. Melody, range, roll, register, structure, harmony, identify, phrasing, dynamics, ostinatos or ornamentation, texture, tempo, time signature, or techniques. It is impossible to write about every single thing of Mrs. HIPDOT. But if you can talk about the big things, you're going to hit most of the concepts of music there, depending on the piece of music. So it might not be worth talking about range, roll, register at all. Okay. But also one thing I like to say to my students is, if you are really good at certain aspects of a concept of music, make sure you put those in your response, because you're going to be confident about talking about, maybe you're really good at texture. I don't know. You might be really good at dynamics and all the Italian terms and expressive techniques. Make sure you include those in your answer. Okay. You might be better at certain things. You don't have to talk about everything with Mrs. HIPDOT. It's almost impossible, but that is what a really good way to help you focus on your response. Put it at the top of the page, listen, circle what you can actually do, and then quickly get to and do your response. So don't forget, in the freebie, you get all those posters, okay? And there's multiple ways to use them, which I've already talked about. And you also get the mind maps for all of the concepts of music as well. And you can see there, they're the other questions, or Mrs. HIPDOT ones. So you get those, the poster and the mind map is obviously there. And you can see that it's printed in different sizes for different purposes. So if you would like to get yourself a free copy of the these that I've shown you tonight, okay, or in the video, go to julia.teachable.com and you'll be able to get yourself one. You simply just have to sign yourself in, you create a free account, and the download is right there for you to actually access all the time. If you, however, would like some more information about the concepts of music, or would like some more resources, please go to my store, Julia Teaching Resources. I have got so much there over on Teachers Pay Teachers. It's not funny. There'll be something there that will help you in some way, shape or form. And if not, send me an email and let me know that you're looking for something in particular. And if you'd like to know more about the concepts of music, you can go to my blog at juliagia.com and you'll find lots of information there as well. So I'm going to stop share. So I said I was talking about other questions tonight and your friend Mrs. HIPDOT. So don't forget, with other questions, we are talking about, let me pull this up, small one, Mrs. HIPDOT. So we've got melody, range, roll, register, structure, harmony, identify, phrasing, dynamics, ostinato, ornamentation, texture, time, signature, tempo, techniques, anything starting with T. Within those things there are going to cover all of the concepts of music, and that will be your friend, okay? But the other important information you really need to make sure is, whatever the question says, make sure you use that term in your answer, okay? So if it's talking about unity, the question said, ask you about unity, put unity in your response. Unity is created in the melody by bit, okay? If it's variety is created through the use of structure because, okay, whatever it happens to be, use that term from the question in your response. Okay, I hope this has been really helpful. Make sure, I said, I'd hope you have watched all the other concepts of music videos, because this is really the last one that you should be watching, because this encompasses everything else. So the things you need to remember for doing those other types of questions for the concepts of music is Mrs. HIPDOT, okay, which I've already talked about. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Julia from Julia Teaching Resources, and until next time, bye.